Chapter 5: The Material and the Source of Dreams. I have written a monograph on a certain plant. The book lies before me. I am just turning over a folded colored plate. A dried specimen of the plant, and though from a herbarium is bound up with every copy. I have written a monograph on a certain plant. The book lies before me. I'm just turning over a folded colored plate. A dry specimen of the plant, although from a herbarium, is bound up with every copy. Analysis. In the morning, I saw in a bookseller's window a volume entitled The Genius Cyclamen. Apparently, a monograph on this plant. The cyclamen is my wife's favorite flower. I reproach myself for remembering so seldom to bring her flowers, as she would like me to. In connection with the theme of giving her flowers, I am reminded of a story which I recently told some friends of mine, in proof of my assertion that we often forget in obedience to a purpose of the unconscious, that forgetfulness always enables us to form a deduction about the secret disposition of the forgetful person. The cyclamen is my wife's favorite flower. I reproach myself for remembering so seldom to bring her flower, as she would like me to. In connection with the theme of giving her flowers, I am reminded of a story which I recently told some friends of mine, in proof of my assertion that we often forget in obedience to a purpose of the unconscious, and that forgetfulness always enable us to form a deduction about the secret disposition of the forgetful person. Disposition of the forgetful person. A young man who has been accustomed to receive a bouquet of flowers from her husband on her birthday misses this token of affection on one of her birthdays and bursts into tears. The husband comes in and cannot understand why she is crying until she tells him, "Today is my birthday." He claps his hand to his forehead and exclaims, "Oh, forgive me, I had completely forgotten it," and proposed to go out immediately in order to get her flowers. But she refuses to be consoled, for she sees in her husband's forgetfulness a proof that she no longer played the same part in this thought as she formerly did. This flawed met my wife 2 days ago, told her that she was feeling well, and asked after me. Some years ago, she was a patient of mine. A young woman who has been accustomed to receive a bouquet of flowers from her husband on her birthday missed this token of affection on one of her birthday and burst into tears. The husband comes in and cannot understand why she is crying until she tells him, "Today is my birthday." He claps his hand to his forehead and exclaims, "Oh, forgive me, I had completely forgotten it," and proposed to go out immediately in order to get the flowers. But she refused to be consoled. But she refuses to be consoled. For she sees her husband's forgetfulness a proof that she no longer played the same part in his thoughts as she formerly did. This Frau L. met my wife 2 years ago, told her that she was feeling well, and asked after me. Some years ago she was a patient of mine. My thoughts now pass on to the time when I was last reminded of the history of cocaine. Cocaine. This was a few days earlier when I received a fast shift, a publication in which grateful pupils had commemorated the jubilees of their teachers and laboratory director. Among the titles to frame of persons connected to the laboratory, I found a note to the effect that the discovery of anesthetic properties of cocaine had been due to K. Collar. Anesthetic. My thoughts now pass on to the time when I was last reminded of the history of cocaine. This was a few days earlier, when I received a Fastcraft, a publication in which grateful pupils had commemorated the jubilees of their teacher and laboratory director. Among the titles to fame of persons connected with the laboratory, I found a note to the effect that the discovery of anesthetic properties of cocaine had been due to K. Collar. Now I suddenly become aware that the dream is connected with an experience of the previous evening. I had just accompanied Dr. Cookenstein to his home and had entered into a discussion of a subject which exists to me greatly whenever it mentioned. While I was taking with him in the entrance hall, Professor Gunter and his young wife came up. I could not refrain from congratulating them both upon their blooming appearance. Now Professor Gunter is one of the authors of the Fastcraft, of which I have just spoken, and he may well have reminded me of it, and from L, of whose birthday disappointment I spoke a little way back, had been mentioned, though of course in another connection, in my conversation with Dr. Cookenstein. Kornstein. Now I suddenly become aware that the dream is connected with an experience of the previous evening. I had just accompanied Dr. Coenstein to his home and had entered into a discussion of a subject which excites me greatly whenever it is mentioned. While I was talking with him in the entrance hall, Professor Gunther and his young wife came up. I could not refrain from congratulating them both upon their blooming appearance. Now, Professor Gunther is one of the authors of the first script of which I have just spoken, and he may well have reminded me of it, and Flo L., of whose birthday appointment I spoke a little way back, had been mentioned, though of course in another connection in my conversation with Dr. Coniston. I shall now try to elucidate the other determinants of the dream connect. A dried specimen of the plant accompanies the monograph, as though it were a herbarium, and herbarium reminds me of the gymnasium. Gymnasium. The director of our gymnasium once called the pupils of the upper class together in order that they might examine and clean the gymnasium herbarium. Herbarium. Small insects had been found bookworms. I shall now try to elucidate the other determinants of the dream connect. A dry specimen of the plant accompanies the monograph, and though it was a herbarium, and herbarium reminds me of the gymnasium. The director of our gymnasium had once called the pupils of the upper classes together in order that they might examine and clean the gymnasium herbarium. Small insects had been found, bookworms. The director seemed to have little confidence in me, in my ability to assist, for he entrusted me with only a few of the pages. I know to this day that there were caruses on them. Caruses on them. My interest in botany was never very great. At my preliminary examination in botany, I was required to identify a crucifer and failed to recognize it. Had not my theoretical knowledge come to my aid, I should have fared badly instead. Crucifers suggest composites. The artichoke is really a composite, and in actual fact one which I might call my favorite flowers. My wife, more thoughtful than I, often brings these favorite flowers of mine home from the market. The director seemed to have little confidence in my ability to assist, for he entrusted me with only a few of the pages. I know to this day that there were crucifers on them. My interest in botany was never very great, and my preliminary examination in botany I was required to identify a crucifer and failed to recognize it. Had not my theoretical knowledge come to my aid, I should have fared badly. Badly indeed. Crucifers suggest composites. The artichoke is really a composite, and it actually fact one which I might call my favorite flowers. My wife, my thoughtful man, thoughtful that I often bring this favorite flower of mine home from the market. I see the monograph which I have written lying before me. Here again, there is an association. My friend wrote to me yesterday from Berlin. I'm thinking a great deal about your dream book. I see it lying before me, completed, and I turn the pages. I turn the pages. How I envied him this power of version. If only I could see it lying before me, already completed. I see the monograph which I have written lying before me. Here again, there is an association. My friend wrote to me yesterday from Berlin. I'm thinking a great deal about your dream book. I see it lying before me, completed and turn the pages. How I envied him this power of version. If I only, if only I could see it lying before me already completed. The folded colored plate. When I was a medical student, I suffered a sort of craze for studying monographs exclusively. In spite of my limited means, I subscribed to a number of the medical periodicals, whose colored plate offered me much delight. I was rather proud of this inclination to thoroughness. When I subsequently began to publish books myself, I had to draw the plates for my own treatise, and I remember one of them turned out so badly that well-meaning colleague ridiculed, ridiculed me for it. The Ford color plate. When I was the folded colored plate. When I was a medical student, I suffered a sort of craze for studying monographs exclusively. In spite of my limited means, I subscribed to a number of the medical periodicals, whose colored plates offered me much delight. I was rather proud of these inclinations to thoroughness. When I subsequently began to publish books myself, I had to draw the plate for my own treatise, and I remember one of them turned out so badly that a well-meaning colleague ridiculed me for it. With this associate With this is associated, I do not exactly know how, a very early memory of my childhood. My father, by the way of a jest, once gave my elder sister and myself a book containing colored, colored plays. The book was narrative of a journey through Persia, in order that we might destroy it. From an educational point of view, this was hardly to be commended. I was at the time 5 years old, and my sister less than 3, and the picture of us, two children, blissfully tearing the book to pieces. I should add, like an artichoke leaf by leaf, is almost the only one from this period of my life which has remained vivid in my memory. With this is associated, I do not exactly know how, a very early memory of my childhood. My father, by the way of a jest, once gave my elder sister and myself a book containing colored plays. The book was a narrative of a journey through Persia, in order that we might destroy it. From an educational point of view, this was hardly to be commended. I was at the time 5 years old, and my sister less than 3, and the picture of us two children blissfully tearing the book to pieces, I should add, like an artichoke leaf by leaf, is almost the only one from this period of my life which has remained vivid in my memory. When I afterwards became a student, I developed a conspicuous fondness of collecting and possessing books, an analogy to the inclination for studying for inclination for studying from monographs, a hobby alluded to in my dream thoughts in connection with Simon and Artichoke. I became a bookworm. Ever since I have been engaged in introspection, I have always traced this earliest passion of my life to these impressions of my childhood, or rather, I have recognized in these childish things a screen on concealing my memory for my subsequent bibliophile. And of course, I learned at an early age that our passions often become our misfortunes. When I afterwards became a student, I developed a conspicuous fondness of collecting and possessing books, an analogy to the inclination for studying from monographs, a hobby alluded to in my dream thoughts in connection with Silman, Cyclamen, and Artichoke. I became a bookworm, herbarium. Ever since I have been engaged in introspection, I have always traced this earliest passion of my life to this impression of my childhood, or rather, I have recognized in these childish things a screen of concealing memory for my subsequent bibliophile. And of course, I learned that any an early age that our passions often become our misfortunes. Which of the following statements is not the reason the author mentions the story sending his wife? Which of the following statements is not the reason that the author mentioned the story of sending his wife flowers to prove that he often forgets in obedience to a purpose of the unconscious, to show his guilty and desire his wife's forgiveness, to emphasize that forgetfulness always makes us deduced about the secret disposition of the forgetful person. What can we know about the author? He was very interested in biology. He didn't fail to recognize crucifer at his primer examination. He didn't well in theoretical knowledge, so he didn't fail the examination. Which of the following can be substituted for